to the latest beta nerf to Nefer, her team damage is now looking much closer to Flins, and even worse compared to Varesa, so it's time to actually analyze who will be the better pick, and see how good they really are without Ineffa and Lauma, compared to the current top 3 DPS. We'll also go over their future advantages and disadvantages, especially keeping in mind free-to-play players.
And before we dive deep, if you want to win a free Welkin, check the description. We're doing a 10x Welkin giveaway to celebrate hitting 5k subs. Also, don't forget to check out Loot Bar. They're currently offering an extra discount for the new version, up to 25% cheaper than the in-game price, and on top of that, there are new offers every time a banner drops. And don't forget, the shop reset that gives double rewards also applies on Loot Bar. Just click my link in the description, pick your server, enter your UID, and your Genesis crystals are delivered instantly. Loot Bar is trusted by hundreds of thousands of players worldwide, and new users even get an extra 10% coupon on their first purchase. Don't miss out. It's the best way to prepare for upcoming banners.
Now let's start with Flins. If we look at his overall team setups, his top teams that come close to Nefer's damage all include Ineffa. Without Ineffa, his TDPS falls by about 35 to 38%, which is a massive drop. The so-called replacements for Ineffa are mainly Ororon, Yansan, and Fischl. But the problem is the damage falls even further since none of them provide the defensive utility that Flins needs in the form of shielding or healing. This often forces you to run Kuki instead. And honestly, you can't really swap Sucrose with an animal healer like Jean because Sucrose's EM buffs and TTDS play such a behemoth role in his setups. If you're planning to swap Ano with someone else, that also looks very difficult since without Ineffa, Ano will be the only Silken Moon's user left. Even though Yansan provides insane buffs, you can't just slot her into Flins' core teams. Another big issue is team options. You'd always want to include a nod-krai unit like Ano in his team, but if you're already running Lauma in the other half, you'll be forced to lead Ano out of one of the two teams. That drags down his overall flexibility. Right now, the best option is to focus on building one strong, full team around him instead of trying to split across two weaker teams. And if we compare Flynn's current setups to Varesa, he falls short. With Ineffa, his lunar charge team can somewhat compete, but without Ineffa, he drops even lower. And even with Ineffa, his premium team is only about equal to Varesa's Ineffa team or Nuvalet's top free setups. So he doesn't provide a major upgrade right now, but being a nod-krai unit, he will almost certainly get buffed in the future, especially once Columbina arrives, and we'll get to that in a bit.
And if you want to see a full in-depth breakdown between Varesa and Flins, make sure to check out the video linked in the description. We've already covered their full team setups, pros, and cons. Now, a lot of you have also been asking the question, which is the better choice for Flins, his C1 or his signature weapon at R1? Based on the latest numbers, his weapon actually comes out ahead. His signature catalyst is about 25 to 30% stronger than his best F2P alternative, while his C1 only provides around a 20% overall damage increase. That means if you're looking for long-term value, his weapon is the better investment. But here's where it gets interesting. Ineffa is actually a much bigger upgrade than either of those. She brings more value to his entire team than his C1 or his weapon ever could. So if you're planning your pulls carefully, and especially if you're F2P or low spend, getting Ineffa is by far the smarter choice compared to chasing Constellations or his signature weapon.
Now let's talk about Nefer after the recent nerfs. Her charge attack multipliers and passive were adjusted. The passive changes don't impact much, but the charge attack nerf results in about a 6 to 8% personal damage loss and roughly a 4% total team loss. Her situation is very similar to Flins in that she heavily relies on Lauma, but unlike Flins, her team options don't really look F2P friendly. Her premium setup includes both Lauma and Nahida, meaning you need 3 5-stars, Nahida holding Deepwood, Lauma on Silken Moons, and currently I know as the only solid Hydro applier. Yelan and Xingqiu just don't work properly for her since she's a charge attack damage dealer. Furina also doesn't fit here. Her damage bonus buff does nothing for Nefer's kit, and it forces you to run a dedicated healer. Kokomi actually looks like a better option, since she provides both healing and Hydro application. Yayao is also a decent choice as a Deepwood holder and healer if you really need one. But if you're aiming for her premium team with Lauma, Nahida, and Ino, you might also want Lauma C1 since that comp doesn't leave any healer slot. Without Lauma C1, you'd have to run Kokomi or replace Nahida with Yao Yao. Barber's Hydro application just isn't enough, especially in single Hydro setups. So even though both Flins and Nefer promise high damage, they suffer from the same issues. They absolutely need their best-in-slot supports to maximize their output. The only saving grace for both of them is Columbina. She's going to be another Hydro option besides Ino, and even better, she'll buff team damage while adding her own. But remember, Columbina will also buff future units, not just Flins and Nefer. The same goes for Lauma. So are Flins and Nefer really worth it right now? If we look at Genshin's banner cycle historically, the units released in the first versions of a new nation tend to be mid-tier compared to the later ones. For example, compare Kinich and Mualani to Mavuika and Varesa. Which brings us back to the F2P question. What should you do? If you really need a DPS, Flins is currently looking like the better choice. Even though his personal damage output is lower than Nefer's, his teams are far more flexible and F2P friendly. Flins has options like Xingqiu, Yelan, Fischl, Odoron, and the Onsen, and he can even be run in Hyperbloom setups with Lauma and Nahida. Meanwhile, Nefer is super restricted to Lauma setups and locked into Bloom-style teams. And when you compare Nefer's damage to current Hyperbloom teams like Lauma, Nahida, Kuki, and Ino, her total output isn't much higher, which is honestly shocking. Flins, on the other hand, provides slightly better numbers compared to existing Lunar Charge teams. Now, if you compare them with older units like Neuvillette, who are both very likely to get reruns in version 6.1 and 6.2, Flins and Nefer do provide higher personal damage, but with much fewer team options. But the real question is, are they such a big upgrade that you'd risk skipping future units like Durin, Columbina, or even the White Adeptus? And the answer is no. With supports like Ineffa, actually current Neuvillette and Varesa teams perform on the same level, if not better, than Flins. The same goes for Lauma. Teams built around her with Nahida, Kuki, and Ino are not bad at all, especially when you realize how many different teams you can activate just by having her. Lauma works in Bloom, Hyperbloom, and even Burgeon with insane F2P options available. And thanks to her resistance shred, she can also be paired with DPS units like Kinich, giving them even more value. She even works with Neuvillette, providing strong personal damage on top of the support she already brings. The same goes for Ineffa. If you already have her, it's not like you absolutely need Nefer or Flins. You can comfortably run Ineffa and Lauma alongside older DPS units and still perform at a top tier level. And that's exactly why saving for future characters like Durin, Columbina, or even DPS options like Varka might actually be the smarter play. Those characters are expected to be technically stronger, more future-proof, and far less restrictive than what we're seeing right now with Flins and Nefer.
So if you ask my opinion, seeing the current scenario, I would say skip both. Yes, even if you already have Ineffa or Lauma, that doesn't mean you have to pull Flins or Nefer. They're strong, no doubt, but they're performing on the same level as older units. Instead, the smarter play is to save as much as you can for Durin and Columbina, especially those later stage units who are almost guaranteed to be way stronger, more flexible, and better long-term investments. So, what do you think? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to participate in the giveaway. More info is in the description.